Over the channel, after 30 minutes of flight, Louis Blériot finally comes out of the fog. He finally sees the English coast.
There was a moment when he lost sight of the ship. He found himself alone between the sky and the water. There was nothing behind, nothing in front. And that's where he drifted towards the North Sea. And after a while, he said to himself, "Something's wrong." During all this, there was nothing that stuck in his calculations. So it was then that he realized he had drifted. And I do not see Dover yet. Ah, the devil, where am I? After a while, he sees boats to his left. And then suddenly, the coast emerges.
But he finds himself blocked by the cliffs, too high to get over for the low power of its engine. His gas tank is almost empty, but the French aviator still wants to believe.
I follow the cliff from north to south, but the wind against which I am now struggling is picking up again.
Blériot never had the opportunity to establish his arrival spot in England, so he is looking for a suitable place to land.
He can't climb as high as the highest cliffs. It's quite nerve-wracking, because he doesn't know how long the engine will last. Maybe he has 50 minutes, but he can't stay 2 hours wondering where he's going to land.
A crevice in the coast appears to my right. A little before the Château de Douvres. I go into it. I rush there.
He says to himself that I have to go there. He will get in there and then have to find a place. He doesn't need much, but he still needs 650 feet of flat land where he can land the plane.
The story goes that he is greeted by a French flag waved by the special envoy of the newspaper Le Matin, by a certain Charles Fontaine.
Now it's time to land. But the wind is violent, and as soon as I approach the ground, a whirlpool lifts me.
He is exhausted, I think, from stress, almost out of energy. He is up at 65 feet, which is extremely high. He reduces everything and he thinks, I've already broken other planes, it's over now.
The fight did not last long, however, because I could not stay in the air for long. And now, I give it a try. Here I go.
One piece of the propeller and some landing gear broke, but that no longer has any importance for Louis Blériot. It is 4:42 a.m., and he has just crossed the channel. Instantly, he is propelled to the rank of national hero. The French aviator has won his bet, and he will become the father of modern aviation. When he returned to France, to Paris, a crowd of 100,000 people welcomed him, a sight never seen before. Orders for the Blériot XI rained down. 200 aircraft are built as a result of his exploit. This is the very beginning of the aviation industry. In October 1909, at the Grand Palais, the first air locomotion fair was held. But this time, it was not the huge dirigible airships and balloons that attract visitors, but a much less impressive machine, apparently more fragile, less powerful, which had yet achieved a feat of international importance.